friends, I'm Coley, this is Sweet Peaches Nutrition, and today we are making my favorite dessert, tiramisu. And in fact, it has been my favorite dessert since I was a child. I had a very sophisticated palate, and my parents let me eat espresso and Kahlua. But I love it because I'm not a fan of sickeningly sweet desserts, if that's your thing. No judgment here. But I love the rich, deep flavors of the coffee, of the Kahlua, and of the dark chocolate, and it's just perfect for me. In fact, it's what I request every year on my birthday. So I just made it, and I thought I wanted to share it with you guys, but add a dairy-free twist. So we're going to be making this with coconut milk, and you get a really nice coconut whipped cream filling, and it is dairy-free. Also, we will be highlighting my favorite Char Ladyfingers because they make gluten-free ladyfingers, so you can make gluten-free tiramisu. And it's super simple once you get the few ingredients prepped, and it looks amazing, it tastes amazing, and you can really impress someone with this delicious gluten-free, dairy-free dessert that really doesn't take much time at all. So let's head to the kitchen. So we're going to start out with some cans of coconut milk. You need the cans, not coconut milk you might buy in like the normal dairy section. And then we are going to scoop out just the cream. So you don't want to shake your cans and you want to let them separate. And if you notice that they're not really separating, you can put them in the fridge like I did this one so that it'll thicken up. And then you can see you start to hit the point where the liquid is underneath and you don't want to mix them. So you just want to keep scooping the top so that you get all the nice cream that's going to make a really thick whipped cream versus the more milky part of the coconut milk. And so I'm just scooping out all those cream bits, and you can see what is left is liquid, and I'm just going to discard that. Okay, so once we have all the cream in, we're going to add some flavoring. I'm going to start with some vanilla bean paste. Now, you can use vanilla extract if you don't have the paste, but as you can see, this is really thick and it has a nice sweet taste, and it'll give your whipped cream nice little vanilla flecks. So for me, it's worth the investment because I love vanilla, but you can definitely just use extract too. And then we're going to add in some Kahlua. That'll add a nice coffee liqueur taste. Mine happens to be salted caramel, which is pretty good, but you don't need anything fancy. You could also sub in rum or a sweet marsala if you wanted. And then I'm going to add in powdered sugar. Now, I usually cut sugar in recipes because I don't like things super sweet, but here you do need a decent amount of sugar because the coconut milk isn't sweetened and we're using bitter ingredients, so I wouldn't recommend cutting the sugar, and in fact, you should probably taste the whipped cream when it's done to make sure that you don't need to add any more or adjust it. And then we're just in a stand mixer, or if you have a hand mixer, we're going to whip it until it combines. And if you don't have a mixer, don't worry because this isn't as labor intensive as making dairy whipped cream, so you can definitely do it by hand with a whisk, and you just want to get it light and fluffy. And as you can see, we are going to look for soft peaks. Now it's starting to get incorporated, and you can see that the whisk is leaving trails in it, so that looks good. And then you can see that there's a little peak on the end of the whisk. And so, like I said, give it a taste and make sure it tastes good for you. Next up, we're going to combine coffee, Kahlua, and sugar, and this is where we're going to soak our ladyfingers in. So if you have a shallow dish like a pie pan, that's really great because it allows you to soak the whole ladyfinger at once. Even a shallow bowl will work. And then here is the star of the show, the Char gluten-free ladyfingers. They do contain egg, so they are not vegan, but if you use a vegan ladyfinger, the filling and everything else is vegan. But these are the only gluten-free ladyfingers I've been able to find that are pre-made. And so that's what they look like. And as you can see, sometimes some break, but don't worry because you can just piece them back together and you won't know in the final dish. So then you're going to need to find a dish. I happen to have this 11-cup Pyrex container that they fit perfectly in. I was shocked. Literally 6 foot across the bottom and 6 foot across the top, and there are 12 in the package. But if you don't have this container or a perfect fit container, don't worry. Just dry fit them and make sure you know how you're going to put them in before you get started. So that in case you have to like cut them or anything, you know where you're going. And then we're going to just soak them in the coffee mixture. You want to get them saturated, but you don't want them falling apart. Especially these are pretty crunchy, and so it's not very good when your dessert is crunchy. So just flipping them over, getting them saturated, and putting them into the dish. And just gonna keep going until you have an entire layer. And if they're broken, don't worry, like I said, you can just soak each half and then they fit in and no one will ever know. Once you have your whole bottom layer of cookies, you're going to take the whipped cream and you're going to take about half of it and dollop it on. So I like to kind of put dollops across all of it and then spread it out so that it doesn't get too thin in one place and I don't rip the cookies when I'm trying to spread them out. And so when I was testing this, I used 2 cans of coconut and it was not enough. So the recipe is written for 3 cans, so you shouldn't have to be as scant as I'm being here. There should be plenty of filling so that you don't have to worry about running out at the end. And then I'm just grabbing a little spatula and spreading it out to make sure that all of the cookies are covered and you get a nice layer. Because it doesn't really matter, but when you have a glass dish, you can see the sides and it's nice for presentation. And so I'm just making sure I get it all filled in and trying to not waste any of the coconut. And next up is our chocolate layer. So I have this bar of extra dark chocolate. I like super dark chocolate, but you can do whatever you prefer. And then I'm just going to take a couple squares of it and grate it across the top. So I'm using a microplane. You can use a cheese grater, that's fine if you have that, and then just grate across the top. If you don't have a way to grate your chocolate, you can actually use a vegetable peeler and go down the side and make little curls, which is super cute. Or you can just use cocoa powder and sprinkle that across. Now this step gets a little messy. You could put this on a cookie sheet to contain your mess if you're concerned about that. I just grabbed a sponge and wiped down my counters when I was done. And you want to make sure you get a nice coating because this is the only chocolate that's in the dish, and so you want to make sure you cover up all that frosting so that you get a nice bite of chocolate. And now we have finished our first layer and we are just going to do it all again. Soak the cookies in the coffee. The recipe should be written with enough coffee mixture. I doubled it in the recipe, but if for some reason you run out, just brew some more coffee. And like I said, when you have little halves of cookies, you can just fit them together. And if you accidentally soak your cookie too long, like I did at the end, you can just kind of smush it in and nobody will know. And then again, putting the other half of the whipped cream mixture on top. And again, you should have more than I did because I learned from my mistakes. And when the second layer is on, we're going back in with the chocolate for the top of our dish. Now, if you wanted to be super cute, you could cut out a shape like a heart out of wax paper and put it on, and then do the chocolate on top of it, and you would get like a little negative space design on your tiramisu if you're feeling super fancy, but I just went for a nice, good layer of shredded chocolate on top. And when you're satisfied with your chocolate, you're going to pop this in the fridge for about 4 hours to let it set before you serve, and then you just store it in the fridge and it'll last for several days. And that is how you make tiramisu. It looks like you put more effort into it than you did. It looks really nice, great to make for someone special in your life, partner, friend, family member, anybody. They are sure to appreciate the effort that you put into this dessert. Thanks for watching. Bye!